Yeah, so just so everyone can get sort of an idea about yourself, do you mind just telling us a bit about yourself and what sort of made you get into mental health and the path you're currently taking and what your sort of aim is with it?
Yeah, that's fine. So, I started off a number of years ago going to university to initially study psychology and counselling and psychotherapy. I've done that for 3 years, so got a degree in counselling and psychotherapy more so. I put the psychology to one side, and fully studied counselling and psychotherapy in the second and the third year.
Yeah,
And then that took me to progress to Edge Hill, and that's where I studied mental health nursing. So I've got a master's also in mental health nursing.
yeah,
So that's pretty much took me to where I am today. I work as a mental health nurse for the NHS, although all the views today are my own for legal reasons. So yeah, that's sort of currently where I am today. I'm not an expert in the field. I'm learning every day as we all do, but
yeah,
I'm quite passionate about mental health, and I think it's important to touch base and grow, because there's still a lot of stereotype around mental health.
yeah.
So that's my aim for my career, really, is to grow and develop and spread the word as much as I can. That's why I got into it.
What was your sort of like personal experience with it? Like,
Um,
what made you get into it?
so I think you hear about it a lot on the news and the media every day. And as I say, I wanted to do psychology in university, and
Yeah,
you're seeing people, close family, close friends, going through issues with the mental health, anxiety, depression. There's life factors, the stresses going on, and it's wanting to provide that help, that support, that network. I think back in them times,
yeah,
there was still the stereotypes, and there still is today. They have lessened, but it was sort of a taboo subject, more so than it is today.
yeah.
And I think I just wanted to progress into the field that way.
I think that sort of back in the day, not as many of us understood it
Yeah,
properly.
definitely.
But like, obviously you'll know because you've done a lot of research and you've studied it,
Yeah,
how complex it actually is
yeah,
and sort of how much is involved with it.
yeah. I think there's a lot of movements, especially over the past sort of 5 years, um, about recognising it in a workplace, as opposed to it being this stereotypical, trying to make an excuse for a day off work or
Yeah,
something like that. That was
yeah,
one of the main stereotypes.
yeah,
People are suffering. People are suffering on a daily basis, and there's a lot of work to do. It's still an underfunded field, but that's nothing that we can influence, unfortunately.
yeah,
But yeah, I think it's definitely important to try and move it forward,
yeah,
especially as is touched on in the workplace. Just in day-to-day life, really, try and move it forward as a topic that isn't stereotyped anymore for people who are experiencing difficulties with mental illnesses,
yeah,
to not feel ashamed about it.
yeah. Just speaking up about it, being
Exactly.
comfortable.
Being able to feel comfortable to open up about it. Exactly.
Yeah,
So that's obviously one of my personal goals, one of my personal aims moving forward, especially as a male, as well as a young male. Obviously,
yeah,
suicide rates in males, we both know, are quite high, and the statistics are unbelievable. And it's affected a lot of the community
yeah.
in the area.
And that, I think you never really know what someone's going through, and
that's the
you
thing.
can't feel their pain or their
Exactly.
emotion, and even you never know what they're going through, what they're thinking. Like you talk to them, but you never know what thoughts they're having and how, when they're going home thinking about things. And
I think Tyson Fury, he touched on that in a clip that I was watching, a
yeah,
short documentary of his, and he said, if when he was a boxer, if you had an injury, it was physical, you could see it or you could feel it, or somebody else has experienced it, you could
yeah,
treat it.
you can't see it.
The same thing for a
Say
broken
if you
arm.
got like a cut on your arm or
Exactly.
whatever, you can see it
A
healing, but
physical injury.
there's so much more in your body that you can't see.
And I think your brain is so complex, and everybody will experience a mental illness in a different way. There's no, oh well, you've broke your arm in this place, we'll do an operation, 6 to 8 weeks healing, and then it'll be back to square one and back to normality.
It's not as easy as that with the mind.
It isn't.
Yeah,
And as I say, everyone will experience it in a different way.
yeah. everyone interprets it completely different, and the whole experience and the thought processes on different emotions and stuff like that. But I mean, I can sort of relate because mine's more to do with pain.
Yeah.
So I suffer with back pain. It started about 9 years ago, but it sort of be like on and off, and I'd have days where it's fine, and I'd be going through that vicious cycle of it getting better. And I love my training, and I love the gym. That's something I'm really passionate about, and that's truly what makes me happy, and that's what makes me enjoy my life. Obviously, I find other ways to enjoy my life, but that's something that kept me on the straight and narrow. It was good for my mental health, and I just felt really good about myself going to the gym. So it was really frustrating not to be able to go, and that was sort of the mental impact that it had on me.
Yeah.
And it was always me worry, if it goes again, I'm frightened that I won't be able to go to the gym, or this is going to happen to me and I'm not going to be able to live my life as I want to. So it was sort of like get better, but over time it sort of like progressed, and then I feel sort of pain every day. I've got it under a lot more control now, and I'm in a much better place. I say about a good 6 months ago, I was in a really bad place, and it sort of really took its toll over me. And what it was sort of doing, when I would sort of get the pain, I just instantly get like a panic attack, because I'm sort of worried about it. Takes me back to that time when I first hurt it, and it's put me back in that place. And I'm like, oh no, it's going to happen again. And then I'm like, boom, it just like flushes through my body. And I'm like all hot and flustered, and I'm panicking, and then I'm doubting myself. I'm having negative thoughts. Do you mind like touching on that and explaining sort of what that is?
So that it sounds like, I mean, I'm not a doctor, I don't diagnose issues, but it sounds like there's a little bit of health anxiety towards your health.
Yeah.
Obviously, having experienced something like that, but it also sounds like there's factors of PTSD in there, so post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
So PTSD commonly linked with the likes of veterans, people who've served in the military, due to the environment that they've been in, but it isn't limited to them. It's more so a genetic environment that's caused trauma, has an effect on a person. Like you say, the pain, initially you didn't know how to sort of deal with it, and it gave you a range of emotions, feelings, thoughts.
Yeah.
Your body will then, with anxiety, feel like that's the way that you're moving forward again. So your thoughts and your neurotransmitters in your brain will respond to how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And you know,
I'm sort of back in that place.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's that stress.
Yeah.
And I remember what it was like when I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to work, couldn't go to the gym, couldn't socialise. And it's sort of, even if it's just a little niggle, sometimes, boom, it just sets me back. And a lot of the time, the emotion and the stress I'm going through is worse than the actual pain, the actual physical pain itself.
And I think it does sound like that's your mind responding to the initial pain.
Yeah.
And your body's reaction to thinking, well, if it gets as bad as it was, how do we deal with it? How did I deal with it?
Yeah.
What emotions did it cause then?
Yeah.
You know, what stresses did it put me through physically and mentally? And that's just your body's way of responding to the familiar situation, because that's how it dealt with it in the past. It thinks that it's got to deal with it the same way again.
Yeah, it's sort of like protective.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not pleasant. Like it's very, it's horrible, mate, to sort of feel. But like, not only that, it's then, usually I'm a positive person, and I'm very, motivated, career driven. I always want to look after my health and lead a good life. But then that sort of takes over and everything changes. My mindset changes. So it's impossible sometimes to be positive and like just think, no, I'm going to be all right. And that's what I try and tell myself. But when I'm having them thought processes, that sort of anxiety and whatever takes over me, what I start thinking, like, so like intrusive thoughts, and then my thoughts are like, you know, you're not going to be able to do your career, you're not going to be able to do your job, you're not going to be able to go to the gym, you won't be happy, and then it sort of even gets really deep. It's like a domino effect of thoughts, and it's like, oh, you're not going to be able to have kids, you're always going to be a burden on someone, you're always going to be complaining about your back, and you don't want to be telling people, like, you get sick of hearing yourself about it, but then you're like, I'm too worried to talk about it, because I feel like other people are just, they want to get on with their lives, and it's hard to like speak out and open up, but then them sort of negative thoughts, they're putting me down, they're telling me, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, and then I'm like, oh, and then I put things off, and I don't want to meet someone because of that, and it's like, it can be difficult, but as I say, I'm definitely in a much better place, but I've had to really sort of consciously change my habits, and make sure I'm more on top of it, and self-management, and I've done tons of research into anti-inflammatory and foods that are more that enhance inflammatory, like processed sugars and processed carbs, and then I find sort of a lot of herbal stuff that helps with inflammation. I take CBD, that also relaxes my anxiety, because I'd definitely rather take that than be taking loads of medications all the time, and be addicted to it. I'd rather take something that's healthy.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of forms of medication, and as you said, you was doing your own research, and I think there's not enough evidence. My personal opinion is that there's not enough evidence, and there's not enough studies long term done in the UK. I think the US is slightly ahead than the UK around CBD oil and its treatment and its health benefits. There are evidence, it's working for people.
Definitely works for me, and it's worked miles better than anything else that I've took. So it's sort of like, we do need to put more into it, more time, more research. It should be an option for people. It should be there, and people need to be educated on it.
I think there was one case that I'm aware of. I'm not too sure whether there might be a handful more since of an 11-year-old boy. You might have seen it on the news.
No, I don't think I've seen it.
Major seizures, and it was the first time that a property of cannabis was prescribed on the NHS.
Right.
And they took a before and after video, basically, of using the oil and his properties, his characteristics of his illness, the seizures before and after was unbelievable.
Wow.
So the evidence is there, although in a small dose, it is there.
It does help.
It does look like it helps, and obviously, as you say, in your
personal experience. It's things like that I feel like people need to learn. That's why I want to do the podcast, and I'm going to put my time into it, my spare time, and I'm sort of going to give that back to people, and then what I find, I'm going to post out there, and it's sort of like an information hub or a support page, because I feel like we don't get educated on it enough, and like people don't know enough about it, and it's sort of like, people fall into a rut with things, and then they can't get out. They need support with it. You know what I mean?
There's no evidence easily accessible, and there's no. I think the main thing is, especially with mental health, is that there's no one size fits all. So as I said about
everyone's
the operation,
unique.
There isn't do this, do that, and it'll heal, so to speak, in this amount of time. It really is, and you touched on it before. Coping strategies, coping mechanisms, how you cope is really important to explore. Do things that make you happy. And I think the most important part is, when you're in a good place, plan for when you're in a bad place, because like you said, when you was in a dark place and it was a spiraling out of control, so to speak. When you feel like you are at your lowest point, it can and it will and it does get better. But it's important to realise that
it does.
Otherwise you can end up again spiraling further down, and it having a really negative effect and a knock-on effect.
Exactly, and not every day is going to be a good day. You know what I mean? Like, people have good and bad days.
Exactly. And there's going to be days where there's more life stresses.
And that adds to
daily basis stresses. The bus didn't turn up, or the shop wasn't open when you went, or there's little things that will amount to the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Yeah.
The little things mount up,
Yeah.
and it paints a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And you've got to take that into consideration.
So them sort of things that add to it, the stresses that will increase the chances of me even getting physical pain. And but sometimes I'll be like, because I've been so stressed and worried, and then I'm like, oh no, like my pain's gonna come back, and I start thinking like that, and I can't help it because it's like subconsciously built into me, and it's just hardwired. Like I can't. It's almost impossible, but like I'm doing what I can. I'm doing a good job at it, but the stresses add to it, and then that sort of takes over. But yeah, like where I am now, I'm very grateful, and I appreciate where I've got to. I'm still able to sort of go to the gym now, but like mild and moderate. Like I've just got to make sure, I keep my core strong and everything. I keep myself physically active, and that sort of helps me back. And if I didn't do anything, I'd end up worse. And I'd also not being able to go to the gym, I'd get really down and quite depressed. And I'm thinking of a time, just going back to the time when I was in the dark place, wasn't able to go to the gym, and I felt like it affected the way I was around people, and I wasn't truly myself. And around others, I was just like I couldn't enjoy things that I loved, and like anything I loved that was like I was passionate, I just didn't want to know, and that sort of took over me. And then I'll be honest, like there was even days where like it was that bad, and I was sort of going to bed, and I was like, I don't want to do this. Like I felt like saying I'm sick and tired of doing the same thing every day. It's really starting to kill me, and I'm really tired. And then it was like some days I was going to bed, I was like, I don't want to wake up, because I was like, when I was asleep, I wasn't in pain, and I wasn't having to worry about all this stress. And
so what for you was the changing point? Where did that get better, so to speak?
I think something just clicked with me, and something just sat in my mind, and it was like, what you're doing now isn't working, so you need to change. You need to change what you're doing. And how I changed what I was doing was, as I've said, I consciously changed my habits. I changed my lifestyle. My diet is clean, even more to an extent now, where I feel a lot better, and the pros outweigh the cons. I'd skip out meals and junk food, but it's better for me. I'd much rather do that any day, because I get a lot less pain. But as well, I started meditating and making sure I was more focused. And even with my job, like I made sure I had a sort of a good setup, and my chair, I had the right posture, and I just made sure like I constantly do this, and me stretches and my movements to sort of help me. And again, CBD, and like I've just managed to get myself in a much better place now, where I can do this podcast, and I can sort of speak out about it, because back then it was that bad, I couldn't really talk about it. It was just sort of where I'm very motivated, that would take it away from me. It would just go, boom, take that off you. Like my motivation will be gone, and everything else is just secondary, and this is the priority, me back. That's what it does. It makes me sort of prioritize that mentally. And it's sort of like when I'm going through that, it's taking me back to that trauma, and it's like my body just takes over me. And even though to the point where I was getting really upset, and I was like sort of grieving over things, like I'm not going to be able to lead the life that I wanted to be. So I can't be the person who I should be and who I want to be, because that's taking everything away from me. It's taking away my passions, my love for anything, even like time with my friends and family. Like I was cancelling on things, and I didn't want to do things like social events, and it was like it was taking away my life really, and dominating my life. But as I say, I'm not fully cured. It's a journey.
Of course, yeah, it is. It's going to be one that unfortunately you may deal with for a long time, and it's about. We had an exercise in university that really stuck with me, and it was basically talking about sharpening your toolbox. So what tools you have could be different to the tools that I have. But
Yeah.
it's about making sure them tools work for you,
Yeah.
and they do as much as they can for you. And
Yeah.
it's about looking at everyone is different. Everybody's
an
toolbox
individual.
is different as an
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everyone will have different strategies of coping. Everyone will have different ways of thinking, and
Sort of tailored to them, isn't
exactly,
it?
of course.
That's the best approach, because I feel like with a lot of things nowadays, like it's sort of just generic, tick on a box, and that doesn't work.
No,
like,
it doesn't.
because no one's the same. You know what I mean? We're not meant to be the same,
Mm-hmm.
and like just having yeah, there will be some things that help me that will help others, and vice versa. But there's going to be things that help me that other people don't want to do, and it doesn't suit them. So I think it is just about individuality, and
it's all going to be finding how you get through it the best. What makes you happy? What do you enjoy? Some you said that meditation, for example, was one of the things that helped keep you motivated,
massively.
keep your mind clear.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work for everyone.
Yeah.
Brilliant that it's worked for yourself.
Yeah.
Some people don't have the concentration span, or they just can't get to the point where they're sat down in quiet or with a little bit of guidance and go through the meditation process.
Yeah.
So as you say, it really is. It's not a one size fits all. It's got to be really individualistic and focused on you and where you want to be, basically.
Yeah.
And motivate the individual to get from A to B.
Yeah.
And the path isn't always straight and clear.
Yeah.
It is often a learning curve, trial and error. Does this work for me? Yeah, okay, go ahead and continue with it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, try something else.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But a lot of it is from my expertise, the stuff that I've seen. It's about making yourself happy.
Yeah.
How can you get through? Because they're often the things that obviously will have a greater impact on your mental health in a positive way.
Yeah.
Is what can you do to make yourself feel a little bit better?
Yeah.
Sometimes it might just be that you get up and make the bed in the morning.
Yeah.
If the day before you stayed in bed all day and you didn't feel like moving and you didn't feel motivated to do anything, just making your bed, that's a positive. Doesn't matter how big or small a positive is, it's still a positive.
Yeah.
And I think as long as the next day you then go on to do something further than that, it's a move in the right direction.
Yeah.
So it's also about making sure that you are moving forward with it.
And sort of making them small steps instead of taking leaps, you know what I mean? Take little steps at a time.
Step forward is a step forward. It doesn't matter how big or small. It's a positive.
And like you said, it's a spiral. So
Exactly.
there still will be days where you've gone back down and you're like,
of course, but
and setbacks.
If you realisation hopefully sets in that, one day I was motivated to do this, so hopefully in the future I can be motivated to do that, and then some.
Yeah.
And have that little bit of positivity to move forward with it.
Yeah.